with poverty and its impact. The impacts of sustainable development gave us a strong impetus. The Secretary General this September will set up a major summit before the one next year. We also have appointments to structure our agenda. COP before the end of the year, the G20s, and today we must succeed in having some clear goals. In spite of this mobilization, in spite of our collective successes since Montreal and Kunming in terms of biodiversity, if we look at the reality, there's an increase in inequity, the climate vulnerability increases risks, and our world is undergoing increasingly strong shocks. The pandemic increased those difficulties. We see an economic recovery, but in a disorganized way, and it goes the same way. And now the war in Ukraine, following the Russian aggression and major destabilizing events. Now, in order to get there, we have a financial system which was born from consensus in the past. It was efficient. It has had some strong achievements over the last decade, but it's probably too slow. It is not well adapted, and we have to realign this with our goals. This is why last year in Paris we proposed a new financial pact. This pact should be built first on people's expectations. I'd like to greet our youth throughout the world who contributed to preparing this summit. NGOs, civil society, they must go on being at the core of this project. I would also like to thank Mia, Prime Minister of Barbados, who had a decisive role, and with their agendas, she started working on climate vulnerability. I'd like to thank all the representatives from Africa and from South America, South Pacific and Asia. President Azoum from Niger will tell us very soon what is the impact and the challenges of fight against poverty. I'd like to thank him. I'll be very short. I believe that this roundtable will push us ahead on many issues, but there are four main, simple items I'd like to set out at the beginning. First, the first principle is that no decision maker, no country should have to choose between the alleviation of poverty and climate protection. Many decision makers over the last few years said, at the end of the day, you have settled the problem of poverty. Why don't you explain what we should do for climate challenges? But we haven't settled the poverty issue yet, so we shouldn't be faced with this choice. We should rise up to those challenges at the same time. Second principle, every country should select its pathway in a sovereign way. There is no single model. We should respect the original pathways that countries should follow according to their own model. This new international financial pact should be more compliant with everyone's sovereignty, more respectful. That's what we wrote into the Energy Transition Pact. South Africa signed one of those agreements with the international community. This is also what we wrote in our positive partnership, for instance, Gabon to protect its biodiversity. It is the method which is the most respectful of sovereignty. Third principle, we must assume a public finance shock. We're faced with poverty, climate, and so on all those challenges, we have to invest a lot more. And we're not there yet. So this concession shock should imply more national mobilization of structural and financial structures, and also better mobilization of international institutions. I'd like to salute the IMF leader's role over the last few years, including the reallocation of SDRs, and the new president of the World Bank who is committed to that pathway, and I believe that there is a new partnership that will take place during the summit that can be sealed and that will commit those institutions. The fourth principle, we need a lot more private sector involvement. Let's be honest, there's a lot of liquidity throughout the world, there's a lot of money, but I don't believe that we're going to completely change the system. Some people want that, but I think we can have that system operating in a much better way. That money, those liquidities are used to take up the dual challenge, poverty and biodiversity and climate. In order to get there, we need to mobilize a lot more private money to the developing countries, intermediate income countries, and great emerging countries. The private sector has not come there yet. We've had discussions over the last few years. We want to bring forward instruments, innovative finance, in order to de-risk, and this is why some financiers do not intervene in some countries, and to set up guarantee systems for those. That international private finance should be better mobilized to those countries that need it most. And so we must be collectively innovative. We must support them. We must de-risk in order to trigger off that financing. Without sovereign funds, philanthropists, asset managers, and so on, we cannot rise up to that challenge. This is what I had to say to start off the summit. 4 principles that should structure our action. I believe this meeting should be a meeting of solutions. So over 2 days, we should set out mobilizations, commitments, new instruments, new mobilization. I'll give you a list tomorrow, and practical solutions to change life in the field in those countries that are rising up those challenges. This is how we'll be judged, because we'll have to be accountable. Tomorrow, I will propose a follow-up mechanism so that we can see whether those 2 days did rise up to these ambitions. I'll stop now. Thank you once again for being here today. What really matters is a general mobilization to rise up to that challenge. Our compatriots throughout the world and throughout the world, because those are twin goals. Thank you. Have a good summit.